thegearnetwork.com.
The following is a presentation of the Gear Radio Network.
Drop down the interest rate on your credit card accounts, right?
I am, yes.
All right. So it shows here that from past more than 6 months, you are making your payments on time. In fact, you do try to pay more than your monthly payments, right?
Yes, I am.
But still, the interest rate you are paying right now on most of your credit cards are running over 10%. And I believe you know that, right?
I didn't know that, but now I do. Thanks for letting me know.
So the reason you are getting this phone call today because your profile was being put up for a review by the credit bureaus to get your rate dropped down for existing credit card accounts, okay?
Okay, that sounds cool.
Now, my record indicates that you are a multiple card holder and you still carry a balance over 4,000 collectively on all the cards together, right?
Yes, that's right.
So on which of your credit card you think you owe the most on? Like on which card you think you carry the highest balance on?
Oh, which card do I think or which card do I know?
Yeah, which card do you think?
I know I carry a balance on a MasterCard.
So which bank you have this MasterCard from?
My the bank is HSBC.
All right. So today your interest rate will be dropped down to below 3 and close to 0 along with your monthly payments.
Oh.
And all your responsibility would be you just need to pay your bills on time the way you are doing right now so that your interest rate will never gonna jack up or shoot up higher again. Okay?
Okay, that sounds great.
Now my record indicates that you are a multiple card holder. So as the next step, what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull out your billing statements for your MasterCard. I will read you exactly the balance you owe, the payments you made, the due minimum payment, and the interest rate you are getting charged. And accordingly, I will update you to what's your new rates, what's your new minimum payments, and how much money you're going to save in interest. Okay?
Okay, sounds great.
So kindly grab a hold of your MasterCard and re-verify me the expiration date. When does that card get expires?
Yes, the expiration date 05/21.
Thank you. And verify me the card number so I can pull out your bill.
You're welcome. It's 5404 3758 6642 9886.
And you are the primary and authorized signer on this account?
Yes, I am.
Card is under your name?
Yes, I am.
So as being the primary and only authorized signer on this MasterCard, verify me the last 4 digits of your social, just the last 4.
Yes, 1320.
And what's your 5 digits mailing zip code?
33904.
Thank you. And lastly, sir, are you the one to take care of your own finances?
Yes,
like
I take care of my own.
Everything?
Yes, I take care of my own finances. Absolutely.
What's your date of birth?
My date of birth. What does that have to do with anything?
I'm sorry?
What do you need my date of birth for?
Because we need to make sure that you are the one who takes care of your own finances and you don't have any power to any anymore.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. May 22nd, 1974.
And you are holding the card on you, sir?
I am holding the card, yes.
All right, shove it in your mama's pussy.
Hey, do you ever get sick and tired of being on the JC Money Show?
Go fuck yourself.
Do you ever get sick and tired of being on the JC Money Show? Because I love having you guys.
Coming to you live from the Gear Network studios in Rochester, New York. This is the JC Money Show with your host, John Cimino, aka JC Money. And now, here's John.
Hello again, everybody. Welcome to this edition of the JC Money Show. I do not know what episode it is offhand because I didn't really think to look, but I'm excited because I am back here with you. My name is John Samino, by the way, at I am JC Money on Twitter. Broken rule already by one of my kids back there. I told them to stay away from the podcast because I'm doing the podcast, but there they go, walking back and forth. But in any event, I don't care what you're doing. All right, go get your water. Jesus Christ. And speaking of, well, not really of Jesus Christ, but hey, speaking of Gear Network and podcasters, my buddy Robby Vegas is here from the All Bets Are Off podcast.
Thank you for having me, man. I appreciate
Robby, welcome to the JC Money Show. Your first appearance on the JC Money Show, yes?
First one ever, yeah.
All right. Well, I felt compelled to bring you on here. Number one, I wanted to interview you for a while, particularly with your wrestling career. But then, last week you dropped the album on us.
I did.
And I was just like, whoa. And then I decided to listen to it. Angels and Demons, by the way. And then I listened to it, and I listened to it over and over and over again. I really dig the tunes of there. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But first, my man, how in the blue hell are you?
I'm okay, man. This quarantine has been crazy. But I found a way to keep myself busy. I've been fresh episode of the podcast every week and doing stuff around the house. And
which I happen to have an in with the guy that owns the network, and he appreciates it very much.
Well, good. I'm glad. I hope so.
All right, very good.
And of course, writing and recording albums and dropping new music and things like that. So.
All right. Very good. Very good. So here on this particular edition here of the JC Money Show, for all of you that are watching, whether you're watching on the YouTube channel, whether you're watching on the JC Money Facebook page, or you're listening on any one of the audio formats, first of all, we thank you. Secondly, Robby, as you all know, hosts the All Bets Are Off podcast, ABAO Sunday. Before we get into that, though, Robby, you're creating quite a legacy, I guess, if you will, or building quite the resume as a wrestler. And I want to touch up on that because I don't think when you interviewed yourself, you asked yourself where you started. So I asked this of all of my guests that appear in a wrestling capacity. How did you get into this wild and crazy world of professional wrestling? What made you want to do it? How'd you get in? Mm-hmm. And all that good stuff?
Well, what made me want to do it was Shawn Michaels. I remember I was 8 years old when WrestleMania 12 happened, and he, beat Bret Hart finally. Boyhood dream comes true, and that the voice of Vince McMahon just rings in my head to this day. I could hear him saying, "And the boyhood dream comes true," mm-hmm. And that was the turning point for me, where it was like, I'm really into this, and that just never left me. And so as I got older, I discovered that there was an indie scene. And I started to go to shows because at the gym that I went to at the time, I met Riot. And he told me to come down, check it out, and see what was going on with getting some training. So my first training ever was actually at OSPW. So, yeah. So I did that.
All right. There we go. Breaking the ice there.
Yes. I didn't like it because I was like,
really?
It was 4 hours. It's 4 hours.
Hold on. Was this back when they had that ill-fated attempt at a school? Or are you talking about the trainings that they would do before the shows?
Yeah, that.
Okay.
So I did that.
That was even worse.
Yeah, and it didn't feel right. And I didn't know anything.
Right.
Like, I'm green. I've never trained. I never whatever. I was just going to shows. And something just felt off. And I was like, I don't feel like I learned anything, but I was here for 4 hours. And so I found Buffalo Championship Wrestling, and the trainer there was Bad Boy Brian Jennings. And I knew that he was trained by Les Thatcher, mm-hmm. and he was of the same graduating class as Carl Anderson, Pepper Parks, Dean Ambrose. Mm-hmm. So I was like, this is the guy that I need to see.
Yes.
So I went there. I had my first class with him, went back to OSPW and had one more the week after just to see if like anything would make sense to me now that I had some training with Brian. And it still didn't. So I was like, I don't know. I'm not getting anything here. So I just stopped going. It was only once a month because it was before the show and that was it. And I'm like, well, with Brian, he was training me 3 to 4 days a week. So I went there full time, got my training from him. And a year later, I debuted at Buffalo Championship Wrestling.
And what year was this? Are we talking?
I started training in 2011. I debuted in 2012.
Oh, so I was several variations of Buffalo Championship Wrestling in.
Yeah,
I remember when when I started in 2000, Buffalo Championship Wrestling, I believe, was out then too. I know that they were pretty heavy in like 02 or 03 or whatever, but
Yeah.
I am coming to find out that I am I'm old in comparison to today's crop here. So
I mean, I used to go to the OSPW shows. I had a JC Money T-shirt.
you know, I do recall you mentioning that. You bought that at an OSPW show?
I did. Yeah, it was the Superman with the UWC.
Oh, that shitty shirt. Yeah. very, very good. Not for nothing. That actually was a pretty good seller there. But yeah, I recall you mentioning it. I don't know exactly when, but it might have been when I first started getting to know you.
Yeah.
Might have even been on the thread. That was when I found out Kevin Bennett bought a shirt of mine too at an EW show in 2007. I had no idea.
Okay. Yeah, it was on the thread because we were roasting someone, and I was like, "Oh, by the way."
I call you a mark for that?
Yeah, why not?
Did I say when you said I had a JC Money shirt? Did I call you a fucking mark?
No, actually, you were like, "Dude, that's really cool."
Oh, all right, very good, very good. Humble pie. It's really awesome. It's actually very awesome to hear to hear that. But so now we're talking 2011, 2012-ish. What I don't recall prior to the thread, honestly, when I came into contact with you on there, I don't recall hearing your name very much around. So where were you working between that point and 2015, 2016-ish when you really started to show up on the scene locally, at least?
I was doing BCW, MFW, OSPW, UW. I was doing Victory Commonwealth in Toronto. What else was I doing back at that?
So you were quietly making the rounds.
Yes.
Because I hadn't heard of you before the thread, and that's not saying that as a slam or anything like that. But at that point in my life, when I had exited wrestling, particularly in Buffalo and OSPW, I was nowhere near that scene, and I was focused on school and being a dad.
Right.
And I wasn't really paying much attention to what was going on. So I really, aside from, like the UWC and Eric and Tommy and Ish, I didn't really know a lot of the newer crops. So the thread sort of introduced me to, guys like you.
Yeah.
And reintroduced me to Bennett. And some of the newer guys, I call the newer guys, they're veterans now. You guys are veterans now. But to me, it's always like, the newer crop, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you were making the quiet rounds.
Yeah.
At what point did it start to change for you where you felt like, not just this kid, Robby Vegas, but I'm a worker, Robby Vegas. I can go in. I'm going in. I could take charge of the match if I need to. I can do my thing, and start to because you kind of when I'd say 2015, 2016-ish. That's when I started to see your name. But then you started to, and I'm not saying this because you brought the podcast to my network or anything, but even before you brought the podcast to me, you were doing music concerts, I don't want to say like improv music concerts like that, or just you were starting to build your brand outside of wrestling, and then that sort of kind of intertwined itself. How did that all come about? Well,
I started playing guitar when I was 6 years old, and I actually started playing live gigs and writing my own music when I was 14. So I got into bands, and I did that for 7 years, 8 years straight.
So that was a first love kind of thing.
Yes. So the thing was about that is I had certain levels of success with my music, and I kept getting let down. Like band members, just couldn't hold it together, and I was doing more solo stuff and less, metal and hard rock and things like that. But it was always like a passion of mine. I love 80s hair metal. That's always going to be my thing.
Yes.
And I got to open up for some really cool acts, and things were going well. And we had a few, things going on that I don't want to, shit on too much, but it was big stuff. But I had a couple guys in my band that were like, I changed my mind. I just want to live here. So I was kind of like, well, I'm going to take this opportunity to jump into wrestling. And I was so bitter with like the music scene and the music business at that point that I was just kind of like, yeah, I'll book a gig here and there when I need some money, because I'd already made a name for myself doing that. So I had connections and I could be like, hey, let me come play there because I need a couple extra bucks, but I was really bitter about it. So I'm like, I'm just going to focus on wrestling. And then slowly start getting that itch, and I'm digging back into my hair metal music and stuff like that. And it was like, I need to incorporate this more into my my wrestling persona, because it really is who I am. And it just made sense for me.
So but before you incorporated that,
mm-hmm.
was your gimmick always Robby Vegas, but was it a different version, a different variation of him? Like I like to say, like, using me as an example, I don't want to necessarily name drop people, but let's just say, besides me, Mike Skyros, who he is now.
Yeah.
But several years ago, 2014 in 2CW, he was Guy Sunshine. I had no idea until I was told, and then I even confronted him about that. I was like, were you seriously Guy Sunshine? He's like, yeah. I was like, holy shit. What? Like, what? But like for me, when I first started, I didn't have a beard. I had blotches of beard, if anything, that connected. I was 120 pounds, including pimples, trying to pass myself off as a rich blue blood character, that turned thug, and then became this jackwagon you see before you. What was Robby Vegas before he was the Rockstar?
Well, I always use the name Robby Vegas just because that's what I've used always. Even when I started music at a younger age, I was always Robby Vegas. So I carried that over, and I used it as like, yeah, he was like a rock and roll guy, but he wasn't the rock star. He was just kind of like, I couldn't find my way because I was too worried about like how the match was going to go, or like if I really knew what I was doing, or, like I was second guessing everything. And I couldn't be that rock star character that I am now because I was too in my own head. So it was like, yeah, this guy's a rock and roller. And like, I was a lot thinner. I wasn't as muscular. And then all of a sudden I started having these matches with Ethan Wright out of Ohio, and it started making sense. And then me and my former partner, Marcus Midnight, when we were Midnight in Vegas, we wrestled Leo Rush and Velveteen Dream. And I called that whole thing, and 90% of it was on the fly. And I was like, I can do this. And then it started, I got to hit the weights harder. I got to get new gear. I got to really come into my own here. And then it started to, well, what am I? Who am I? And I'm like, you know what? The first gear I got was the red and black, and it's modeled after Vince Neil from the Shout at the Devil record.
Okay.
And it just clicked right there. Like, as soon as I saw that, I was like, that's you. You're a hair metal guy. You're a rock star. Like, there's no reason for you to play a character because this is who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And then the music side of me started coming out again. And I stopped that bitterness and that, and I started to really enjoy it.
So indirectly, you found a way through wrestling to reignite the flame for music. And then but you also had that love for wrestling as well.
Yeah.
And and when you tied it together, because I'll tell you, that had to have been around the 15, 16, 17 stretch of time like that, because that's when I feel personally, as I was getting to know you more and more, that's when I really feel I started to see more of you. Yes. Not just in a wrestling capacity, but the Pineapple Jacks gigs here locally, and you're not local to Rochester.
No, I live outside of Buffalo.
So that's, I mean, it's not, it's not a painfully long distance from where you are, but still it's a distance. So, for you to be there, not wrestling, when wrestling is, or was at the time there, you're there doing concerts. Now I'm, hearing that, and then you approached me with the podcast idea.
Yes.
And you're out there, you're getting interviews for that. You started doing Facebook live sessions or Instagram live sessions, or both. Maybe they're the same company.
Yeah. Right.
Where you were actually performing.
Yes.
And that's when I really got to it. I was like, wait, this dude, I know I might not look it, but I am a rocker. So I was like, this dude's got talent. This dude's good. I enjoy his stuff. I really dig his stuff.
Thank
and
you.
then you came with the podcast and more with, the wrestling stuff is good. And I love talking wrestling, whatever. But it was really like the album rundowns that you were doing, that was really, especially with some of them, like the Kiss ones, I loved it.
Yeah.
What got the ball rolling with the podcast idea? I know everybody and their grandmother has one.
Yeah.
But, was it more, oh, well, I think I can do this, or I'm trying to kill some time, or what was the motivating factor for you to bring ABAO to life?
Well, over the years, when I started more heavily wrestling, and I was being booked every weekend, double shots, all week, every week, whatever, I'm getting ready for my next weekend away, I was meeting a lot of people. And in the process, I was going to a lot of concerts because I was in the area. So then I'm traveling for concerts, I'm traveling for wrestling. And I had traveled in my younger years for music also with my bands and stuff like that. So I had a lot of connections there. And I was like, I really love hearing people's stories. Like, I like listening to podcasts because I love music breakdowns and I love interviews with people who are like, yeah, I got into, this glam metal scene and this is how it happened and this is where I am now. And I'm like, you know what?
And I literally do none of those things. I post prank phone calls like I did in the pre-show. I'm kidding. Go ahead.
So I'm like, I want to hear these stories. I made enough connections. So I started asking people, hey, if I start a podcast, could I interview you? Would that be okay? And I got a bunch of yeses. And then through those connections, they're connected to more celebrities and, rock stars and things like that. And then, of course, the wrestlers that I've shared locker rooms with, who I became friends with and, had them on. And it just kind of snowballed into this whole, well, what else are you interested in? Well, I love horror movies. So, well, let's see if we can get some people in who are down for like paranormal and horror movies and things like that. And that's why you see, Jason and, Katrina Weidman, and we got, Felissa Rose is coming up from Sleepaway Camp. And you start seeing all those loves roll into one. And through all the connections I've made, I've been able to reach out and get to all these people because I guess I had like a knack for networking. Like,
okay. I could tell when you dropped, there's one in particular that you dropped on me that I was like, holy shit. And it was Winger.
Oh,
How the hell did you wind up with that?
Okay. So,
Captain Networking over here.
Yeah. So I interviewed Cher Ross from Vixen, and she let us come down and come to a show, comp to some tickets, and we sat, like 5 rows center from the stage, and the opening act was Winger. And so through that, I was able to reach out, tell him who I was, that I did the interview with Cher, and she was cool with me, and he could ask her if he wanted to confirm, and he immediately reached back out to me. And because of that connection, he was like, let's do this. Here's my phone number. Call me tomorrow. And I was like, okay. And I grew up, like, I wore my Winger cassette tape out. Like, there was like, you can't even hear it anymore. I played that thing so much. So when he agreed to do that, I was like, holy shit. And I had like a day to prepare myself with questions.
I think that might have been when you text me and told me because I was, it was, pre-quarantine, I was still working at the office.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of sitting there like, going through the motions, listening to conference calls and meetings and whatever. And your message goes off and I kind of like half look and I'm like, guess who I got? And I was, who? And then put the phone down. And then it came through like almost immediately. Like, and I looked and I just kind of gave it the little, okay. And I had to mute my phone because I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" Like that was so that's pretty that was pretty awesome here. And speaking of awesome, what I'm gonna do, I'm actually gonna transition right now from all of that to Angels and Demons. Robbie, you dropped that on the world. I'd say just about a week ago now. At this point,
yeah.
I know it had been a work in progress, and I know you had sent me. I think it might have been an interview with a vampire. You sent me.
Yeah.
Directly. It was just kind of like, hey, you mind hearing this and tell me what you think? And that happens to be the first track on this album here. And it's going to be the one that I specifically asked Robbie before if I had his permission to go ahead and air it. So I'm going to go ahead and air it because he graciously said yes. So here, I want you to take a listen. Robbie and I are going to take a quick break. While we take a break, you are going to listen, my babies, to Interview with a Vampire, Angels and Demons, Robby Vegas, right now.
Tell me a story. everything inside you die. Did you put up a fight? Did you welcome your sick side? Turn a light, what you seal. Live forever, life in hell. Tell me the secret of your immortal life. Do you have any regret when you're stuck in the night? Turn a light is what you seal. Live forever, a life in hell. Turn a light is what you seal. Live forever, a life in hell. Turn a light is what you seal. Live forever, a life in hell.
WGRN here on the JC Money Show. And how are you? And I can't even try to do a radio DJ gimmick there for the end of your song. I tried. It wasn't. But that was interview. That was interview with the vampire by the man himself, right over here, Robby Vegas. He joins me. So apparently Emma wants to join in on this too. Okay, honey, I'm recording a podcast. Like I'm recording. This is on air now. You can't hang here for the whole podcast, you know. All right, thank you. Robbie's back, and we are talking. Not interview. Angels and Demons. It is a album that you wrote, recorded, put out yourself. If you have any music subscription service, that's Apple Music, Amazon, Spotify, all that. You can get that whenever you want, or if you don't, if you're a square and still live in 2002 and you don't have any of these subscription services, there's 6 songs on this album, 99 cents a song, $6 give or take. Quick maths there for all of y'all. Just a little over $6 for the entire album. But Robby, take us through this journey. How long have you been How long did you working on this project for? And what? How the hell? Where did you find the time to do this with all the other stuff you've been doing?
Well, it's a 2-part story because I actually set out to only release my all acoustic record this year. So I've released a bunch of records in the past before I got heavy on the road with wrestling and training with wrestling and all that stuff, and I haven't put a fresh record out since. So I just got too busy, and last year I was like, you know what, I need to put out some new music. It's been a long time. I'm feeling it. So in the process, I dug out some of my old hair metal influenced rock. And of course, as I was going through, I'm like, you know what, I should put this out first. So it was stuff that I already had as far as the heavier stuff goes. And I wanted to get it out there, make it downloadable, let people know this Rockstar thing. It's I don't want to say it's true because I hate using the word rock star about myself, but it's more than a gimmick. Like, this is me. This is who I am.
Well, I mean, it's not necessarily untrue. There's a certain, and I like to say this, not necessarily putting me over or putting anybody else that's in the wrestling business over or anything like that, but there's a certain lifestyle involved with that. Now, it's not to say it's the same lifestyle that, ran rampant through the 80s and 90s with drugs and all that stuff now, because I think people are a little smarter to that now, but there's still a lifestyle, and you are not just average Joe Q plumber or whomever. When you go to a show, be it a music show that you're on or a wrestling show that you're on, people are in some way, shape, or form there to see you. So when you are, when you take off the gear or whatever and you're walking to the car, there's a good chance somebody's going to see you and be like, "Hey, Robbie, can I have your autograph?"
Right.
Or, "Hey, Robbie, can you stop for this picture?" Or, "Hey, Robbie, what are your thoughts on blah, blah, blah?" Mm-hmm. And my neighbor over there won't get that, if he were in the same scenario. So to a degree, I guess what this ramble's trying to say is, to a degree, yes, you are living a bit of a rock star lifestyle, gimmick or not, because of what, the elements in which you are surrounded in.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's tough for me. Like, I'm probably humble to a fault sometimes, as my good buddy Rob Sweet would tell me. But I don't have problems with people, and I don't have an ego, or you know what I mean. So, like, to say
for the record, not to interrupt, Rob Sweet, you bastard, I want you on the show. Just saying.
Oh,
okay, go ahead.
He's the man.
But I love Rob Sweet.
Oh, he was texting me all morning about my record. He's a huge rock and roll historian. And
yeah, I know. We've had some great conversations over at Casa de Emanon, a few times, talking wrestling, talking rock and roll, and shit like that. I think he's actually one of the, I would say, when the quarantine lifts and things like that and wrestling shows start going around, I do have a list of people that I'd like to work before I'm officially forever retired. I'd like to, I feel like I'm Macho Man Randy Savage from 1997 right now, where I'm kind of like, I could still call a match, but, I might not be as good as I was 10 years ago. But and Rob Sweet's one of the people on my list that I'd love to get in the ring and work with. You are too, for that matter.
Oh, I've been wanting to do that for years. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that.
I'm looking forward to you carrying me. It's going to be an easy night. I ain't calling shit.
I mean,
that's a total lie.
Yeah, right.
But I will tell you this, and this is one thing, and this is a true story. You can ask anybody that I've been in the ring with. There is one point, maybe two, depending on whether or not I like you, and we have a relationship or whatever.
Yeah.
But there's one point in every match where I do something to try to get someone to break, and usually it involves an obscenity, a random obscenity, thrown at a completely weird point. Like, usually, a few times I would get it is when one of my favorite spots was to take the back body drop.
Yes.
And it was to take a stereotypical back body drop. And I always did it because my tag team partner at the time, Tiger Smith, absolutely hated doing it. So I would always incorporate that into my match to show him, hey, I could do this, no problem. Right. And another one was I would like to take the clothesline, a hook over, and then take the backflip bump over the top rope to the outside from the ring. What usually was in one of those two spots where I would yell something, whether it was mid-air and I'm flipping, I would yell out something. I can't say it now because my 5-year-old's right here, but or when I'm getting closed over the time. 6-year-old, I'm sorry. She's 6. Thanks for correcting me, Emma. Now go in there, will you? Good Lord. So that's a warning. If you and I were to ever work in the ring, there's a very, very high probable chance that I will get you to crack.
I mean, I did that to one person one time. The only person I ever got to crack was Lee Knight. And I was choking him in the corner, and I whispered in his ear, "You smell like strong coffee and going to see a man about a horse." And he lost it.
I did that one. That's funny. That freaking one time that I don't know why that reminded me of. I was wrestling Brian Emanon, and I for some reason decided it would be funny to just take my straps down, push air into my stomach, and do the Kamala. And so I start hitting my freaking belly, and I do just this shittiest flop. Like, you ever seen Family Guy where they do like the like the standing fall? Like, it's just they're standing 1 second and then just you know. I did that in the Kamala splash. Just did that purposely, and Brian's already like this, and I looked at him and I go. And I brought my nose right up to his, and I said, Kamala loves you. And he just turns his freaking head. He had to turn like this and act like he got hit in the face because he was laughing so hard. So that's funny. But anyways, back to the album here. You were talking about what inspired you more or less to get the ball rolling on that. You were going to release the acoustic one. How did it turn into this one?
Well, the thing is like I had never fully stopped playing music because every year I play big shows 1 to 2, 3, 4 times at Darien Lake. So I'd been playing the VIP tent for Kiss, Motley Crue, Alice Cooper, Goo Goo Dolls, Kings of Leon. I even played for the Backstreet Boys. Like, I was literally in there for everybody. And I wasn't putting out any new music, and I was like, I got to get the ball rolling here. And I'm feeling, the Motley Crue and the 80s hair metal and Slaughter and Winger and all that stuff. So that's why Angels and Demons had to come out, because I was like, I got to push this. And a lot of those were songs that I had written like 8 years ago. So I was like, I want to get these out and push them again, basically. And I have another single coming out that's like my power ballad, and that'll be in another month and a half, whatever it is. And then the acoustic record, which I started working on a year ago. This record is very personal. It's a very deep record. It's called I'll Keep You Safe, You Keep Me Wild. And it's all romance, love songs, whatever you want to call them, 10 tracks. Never released these before anywhere. So this will be the first release by far for any of these songs. So inspired from a lovely lady in my life. And I was like, we need to get these songs out there and let them be heard, because they're my best songs that I've ever written as far as solo songs go. And I really wanted to like lay some groundwork before they came out, because I wanted to build something up and then smack them with something completely different. Like, this is coming from deep down in my soul. And I do everything on these records. So I'm playing the guitars, I'm playing the bass, I'm doing backing vocals for myself. It's just, there's no drums. It's just 10 acoustic tracks.
It all translated very well here. So and yes, I'm going to download the new one and I'll listen to that too. Even though it's romantic and all that stuff, because but you know what? People can say whatever. Everybody's been through a point in their life where those kinds of songs will resonate with them. Yeah. So there's no way anybody's sitting there, you're writing this romantic, putting this romantic stuff out. Like, there's been plenty of times where that person themselves probably could be down with listening to a song like that or two. And also too, it's you expressing yourself.
Yes, exactly. And when we reconnected, there was somebody, everybody knows who I'm talking about at this point. I don't know most people do. At least people that I see or talk to or have been around within the last few years.
I have no idea who you're talking about.
But we reconnected. We knew each other for a long time, and I was super inspired. And so the album tracks from track 1 to track 10, the span of the relationship. So it goes through highs and lows. So I'm not holding back anything. I'm telling the entire story. And it's basically like a concept record, because the whole thing is one book. It's one story about the same two people. So each track takes you through a different step in that journey. And I've never done anything like that before. I don't know if I ever could do anything like that again, but everything just poured out of me, and it just felt so easy. And I was like, these are cool singing and playing, but with the recording process, you have that extra step in there where you don't track everything at the same time. So I lay the guitar down And then I lay the vocals down. And then I go, some bass would sound really cool right here. A second guitar part would be really cool right here. I could throw some backing vocals right here. Now I have this whole album pouring my heart and soul out of me, just doing everything. And I couldn't, wait to get that out there, but I needed to lay some bedding so that there was already following behind it so that more people would hear it.
So tell me something. When you are set to release these out, is there a part of you that's, nervous, or is it pride? Regardless of whatever reviews may come, I did this, I produced this, I got this out there. It's part of me. Is there any of that? Is there angst? I mean, what goes through the mind? 'Cause I can, again, the only way I can relate to anything like that would be if I were to do voiceovers for commercials or podcasts. I'm my own worst critic. And so I'm wondering I would say that, releasing music is several levels above releasing a podcast, because podcasts, I could just turn on a hot mic and talk and whatever. But, there's a lot involved with music. And a lot of it is emotion and all of that. What goes through your mind as you're ready to release? You make that decision, you're going to go live very soon. What's all in there, man?
There's definitely a little bit of nerves, but with the heavier and the rock stuff that I had just put out and the next ballad that's coming out, it's a little less nerve-wracking than the acoustic record, because yes, I'm writing from things that inspired me regardless, and as an artist, that's the only place I know how to write from, whether it be me or something I saw or read or watched or something somebody I know is going through. I have to draw inspiration from a real thing. I can't just sit down and say, I want to write a song about this, and then write a song about this, because the people listening to it, at least in my opinion, they know the difference. And they know when somebody's a fraud. They know when a musician is just writing just because. But the acoustic one, I'm nervous about more so when I still have the master copy that nobody's heard yet. So when I gave it to her, that's when I was nervous.
That's fair.
But that's the most nervous I've ever been releasing music. But so far,
all right, very good.
But with the Angels and Demons release, I had some nerves, but they started to calm when I'm going to name drop a little bit.
Go for it.
Jack, who is the guitar player for one of my favorite bands, Wednesday 13, texted me and said, "This fucking rules." And then I got another text from Ace Von Johnson from the LA Guns, and he said, "This album's great. Finally Home is my jam." And that's how I knew he really listened to it, because he called out a song, And Raven from Raven Black was like, "Hold On" really stands out to me. You got a good record here. So when I started hearing things like that, that's when I was like, oh, okay. And of course, my biggest supporter, the lovely lady, also was like, thumbs up. Love
Outstanding.
It. Yeah.
Very good. I'll tell you, Interview with a Vampire and Good Witch, Bad Bitch. Those are my jams on this album. But I mean, there's not a bad track on here. So again, in Angels and Demons, it is available anywhere you find your music. Download it. Do it now. But after this ends, because we're going to be taking it home soon. But download it. Support the man, Robby Vegas. Really quickly, Robby, before we go, one last thing. Okay, so it's no secret UPW and I are not on the greatest terms. I'm fine with just about 97% of the talent there.
Yes.
That know who I am. Some people there probably don't know who I am or whatever. Obviously, ownership, myself, had a major falling out that almost is closing in, sadly enough, on 2 decades. But I am following you there.
Yeah.
Is a home-based promotion, for me in my area, and you've made quite the splash there at UPW.
Yeah.
Really kind of skyrocketing to UPW championship title status. Now that title's been around almost 20 years.
Yeah.
You came this close.
Yeah.
To winning that. So I have to ask you, all things aside, with, so, you know, some may love UPW, some may shit on UPW, but the fact is, and I'll give the devil its due, it's had its staying power.
Yeah, for sure.
So if you were to become UPW champion, where would that rank amongst your achievements in pro wrestling?
That's like up at the top, especially with when I think of people who have had it or have been in that company and fought for it. That match itself is, I believe it was in January, and it still holds a very special place for me. I could still watch it back and think like, wow, this match is really fucking good. And it's hard for me to look back on my matches and think that, because I like to continuously get better and think that, oh, I could have done this or I could have done that. But that match was like damn near perfect. And it was hard hitting, and it was just everything. And I'm striving to get that title.
I did watch that match, and I enjoyed it. I know everybody in that match. HC Loke is my trainer. He's the guy that trained me. So of course I'm watching him and everything like that. But the part of that contest, and this is no disrespect to Loke, he's my trainer and he's the champ and all that. And if UWC was around, he and I were probably going to go one-on-one. We were teasing it a bit.
Oh, okay.
For UWC, but that ain't happening right now. But it was when you and Cloudy were working, and I was really digging the shit that you and him were putting out there. So, in a perfect world for me, I would like to see Robby Vegas versus Cloudy for the championship. I know Coconut's actually the champion now,
Yes,
but
yes.
if that were to happen, that would be, in my opinion, appointment TV. I personally feel so. And that's not saying that to kiss your ass because you're my friend or anything like that. Is because I really enjoyed when you and Cloudy worked one-on-one together. Who's been your favorite opponent at
Cloudy?
UPW?
Definitely Cloudy. We had a feud that was running for a few months, and we blew it off with a no DQ the month after we did that triple threat with Loke. And that's another match that I thought was just so good and hard hitting, and just it really brought the best out of me, I think, because at that point I was like, I have to keep going up from here. There's no other choice that I have, because I want that title. And I'm not shy about saying that. Like, I want it. And there's no way that I'm going to let that main event status slip away from me. So it's like, now that I've been there, I have to keep doing better every single time, no matter what. And I was definitely in that mindset when I went to that match with Cloudy, because everything started happening so fast. I'm booked every single weekend for, however many years, and I'm traveling and I'm wrestling in 6 different states and Canada. And then I did the WWE extra work, and I did Impact extra work. And all of a sudden it's like, hey, you're getting thrust up here to the top of the card. And I was like, holy shit. And it just felt like a blur.
All right. Very good. Very good. Last thing, Robby, put yourself over, put over the podcast, put over where people can find you.
So on Twitter, I'm Robby V13, and also the podcast has a Twitter that's been growing steadily, which I'm very happy about, ABAO Pod. It's the same thing on Instagram for both. And really, that's where you're going to find me. I'm on Facebook as Robby Vegas. I don't really do a lot of personal stuff. So if you want to find me on there, that's fine. But I'm going to tell you right now, I don't really accept a lot of people on Facebook. I'm just not, I'm not about it. But, I'm more of a networking, share my music, wrestling podcast stuff than I am about personal shit. So, yeah.
That's good. That's good. I transitioned into the personal shit after the wrestling career slowed, and it sucks. It's way overrated.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm not going to post pictures of my food and everything.
You're not going to post pictures of dog shit?
I'm not going to post everything I do in my day, like Cyclone Jones. I'm not.
Oh, by the way, Cyclone Jones just recently turned 60. Happy birthday, you old fuck.
Yeah. He's 60 years old, but he wants to be a 14-year-old girl. So he tells you when he pisses and when he eats and when he works out. And, I'm not about that life. So chances are you're going to see.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Ish, he's another one I want to work, because I could tell you right now, I know damn well. And I'll tell an Ish story and how he and I got better, and I got better acquainted. But I know damn well I could get Ish to crack in that ring at least 4 or 5 times. I know damn well I could. But I will tell you how. I'll tell you an Ish story really quickly here. So what got Ish and I better acquainted Cyclone Jones. Y'all are on my network. Y'all know who he is. But so Ish and I got better acquainted when he's a Pittsburgh Steelers fan.
Yes.
And at that time, when I first met him, the New York Jets were like legitimately the greatest team in the history of football, right? Not really, but they were much better than they have been the last 9 years.
Yeah.
So he was like, "Oh, Jets suck. The Jets suck. Steelers," and I just kind of like sat there and I looked at him, like kind of like mob style, like, okay, all right, all right. I don't know who this guy is, but he's talking shit about the Jets. How can I mess with this guy to let him know I don't like the Steelers, other than, taking a terrible towel and doing something stupid with it or whatever? And I said, no. I said, I don't know. And then all of a sudden I started feeling something. It's a little bubble guts. And so here's Ish sitting in the back. I think it was a UW.
Yeah.
Yes, I worked briefly at UW, very briefly.
I remember.
But it was a UW. There was a TV in the back of, I think it might have been the Lions Community Center or something. I don't know, one of the centers that they were working on.
Yeah.
And he was there and he was watching the Steelers versus Jets game. And the Steelers were kicking the crap out of the Jets. And he's like freaking, yeah, told you, JC, told you, Jets suck. Sanchez ain't doing it. And he's just yap. And I just kind of sit there and I look and I'm sitting there and I'm kind of the bubble guts. I feel the bubble guts. What do? Unsuspecting Ish. He's sitting there and I walk up to him and he is staring intently at the TV and I walk right next to him. You got to go, honey. And I walk right next to him and I let out the biggest fart that I had built up. Just and Ish looked like he was violated. And he didn't know whether he was going to get mad. It was just complete and utter shock out of his face. And he was like, did you seriously just fart at me? I was like, that's right. You and your stupid ass Steelers. How about that? And farted again. And ever since then, I kind of play the fart game with Ish.
And you guys have never been closer.
And we've never been closer. I bust his balls a lot, but I love the guy. I love the guy. Robby, thanks for joining us here on the JC Money Show. I appreciate having you. And let's do this again. Let's do this again sometime. Especially when you drop your new album. Let's convene again and we'll shoot the shit about that. And hopefully wrestling is up and running by then. I don't think it will be, but if it is, and you're UW champion, great. We'll have you on here for that.
Excellent. Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
And to all of you, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening in, watching in, whatever here, the JC Money Show, we are taking it home. And thanks again for all your support. Again, gearnetwork.com. You go over to the Sport Shows tab. There's a bunch of different banners on there. You can click on any one of those links. 1-800-Flowers is on there. Just a bunch of things. WWE Shop. We have an affiliation with WWE Shop, believe it or not. It's on there too. For me personally, my Pro Wrestling Tees shirt. Robby, you have one too.
I do.
ProWrestlingTees.com. Search JC Money or search Robby Vegas. You can support us there. Download his album. Download it now. I'm giving you permission. Robby, good day to you, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So long, everybody. Good night now. Flavor Flav, a yeah boy for Robby.
Yeah, boy!
Hang on, one more thing before you go. Remember, listen to our sponsors following this podcast, as that does help this podcast and this network out in a way that we appreciate very, very much. So if you could just ride it out 30 to 60 more seconds after this podcast is over, listen to those commercials, it would be doing us a very, very big solid. And again, we thank you.
This has been a presentation of the Gear Radio Network. For more, log on to gearnetwork.com.